Welcome everybody today to Red G Foxx. All right, today, you know what? I took a break from our normal. I had something else scheduled, but with the passing of Norman Lear, I figured, you know what? Let's do a brief bio. I'm not the kind. This is not the channel where you get A&E, a full hour breakdown on someone's personal life. We're going to cover some of the huge accomplishments, what he really did, because I wouldn't even have a channel if it weren't for him. I wouldn't even have wanted to make this channel if it weren't for him, I would say. But all the great shows he helped produce and write, and some facts about him through the years, and including a little controversy that some people, you hear Norman Lear and you think great things. Others, there are some people who go, hey, he's a snake, whatever the case is. We'll try to cover what we can. So let's get some facts you probably didn't know about with Norman Lear. Starting out, Norman Lear, he's a screenwriter, producer, director, oh my gosh, and incredibly great creator. He helped produce, write, create, and develop over 100 different shows. And when we get to some of the early stuff in his life, there's things, you know, where, like I said, I love doing these things, looking this up, because I didn't know a lot of this about him. I just looked at the big hits he had, which we'll cover as well. But in there, all these, look at the shows that he helped create. We know his biggest hit that got him really rolling the ball was All in the Family. He also did The Jeffersons, Maude, Good Times, One Day at a Time, and our favorite, at least I'm pretty sure people on our channel, our favorite is Sanford and Son. Yeah. So I'm always going to appreciate him for that. And regardless, with a lot of these shows such as Good Times, The Jeffersons, and Sanford and Son, he really got the black community popular. He put them, you know, that wasn't something big. We'll cover in some of that, especially with Sanford and Son, how he changed up, because that wasn't his original idea. But you change it up, and I think he did so much for the black community. He got a lot of people paid. He got the culture out there, and he let it just everyday life of what it was like. And that's the big theme with his shows, is that it didn't matter what your skin color was. He had something where it was showing us some serious moments, some great millions of laughs and great comedy, but real people. Like when I see that show, I go, hey, I feel like I could walk in and fit in with those people, regardless that it was real culture, real people. Gone are the days of My Three Sons or Leave It to Beaver, where everything was just picture perfect from the 50s, and it wasn't something I can watch and relate to. And that's what he did. He made things believable and relatable. He took real people and put them on camera for us to display with some amazing stories and comedies. So he was born July 1922. It's 2023. So yes, we know he lived to be over 100 years old. But to know that he was around in 1922, and some of the people he gets to meet will share, I don't even stop to think about that. When I think Norman Lear, I'm thinking, oh, he's in his 70s, in his 80s. You know, he was this, he was, no. He would live to be 101. He just passed away this week, December 5th. At the age of 101. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Like I said, I cannot believe it. Born in New Haven, Connecticut, and ended up dying in Los Angeles. So both sides of the country. He was married 3 different times. And his last wife was in 1987, and they stayed together to his death. And overall, he had 6 children. So family man, found that his last wife happened to be the one that stuck and made it work the best. So congratulations for that, especially when you live to be 101. He served, now as far as military, he did serve in the Army Air Force. So he did get to that when he went from 1942 to 1945. He went to before this, so he graduated high school, went to Emerson College in Boston, but he dropped out so that he can go in the Army Air Force. He wanted to get into that, wanted to fight for his country. It's different when you get drafted. He actually dropped out of college so he can go do this. While he was there, he flew in 52 combat missions as a radio operator and a gunner. He also received the Air Medal Award. That's what it is, the Air Medal Award. So he actually received a medal for this, served 52 different combat missions. Anybody who serves, I always have complete admiration for and just respect, because it is so hard to know that it's different when you walk around going, hey, you know what, I can die in a car accident. You know, you're going against people that are trying to take you out. And World War II, Vietnam War, all those, man, very scary situations, and very thankful that he went and he served. And I gotta say, I wonder if some of these stories even came out, because we'll get to other things relatable, like his parents, how they influenced All in the Family. And it's when you get to it, you're like, how did he use any of these war stories in the show? You gotta think he did, being a writer and producer and director and all the different things. So good that he actually did that, served our country. Tip of the cap. Thank you, Mr. Lear. After that, Lear, his first time, he came out after he was done with the war, when he was discharged. He came out to Los Angeles, and his first time in Los Angeles, he was in a theater, fit about 90-something people. And the people sitting in front of him, Charlie Chaplin was among them, and Charlie Chaplin's son was performing in the show, and he actually got to see Charlie Chaplin perform afterwards when the show was done. So it's like, Charlie Chaplin, I mean, to sit there and go, oh my gosh, this is a guy who just died. And I feel like Charlie Chaplin was, you know, generations ago, he was. And yet Norman Lear actually got to sit behind him and watch him perform live. That's amazing right there. That's someone who goes, okay, he's on the right track. Look at the people around him. You know, the early stage of show business, he's got so much years of experience that he gains from all this. Lear and his cousin, now this is soon after, Lear and his cousin's husband, Ed Simmons, right? So his cousin lived in Los Angeles. He was out there. And her husband, Ed Simmons, who wanted to get into comedy and writing and all sorts of things like that, they worked together as a team doing odd jobs, from family photos to insurance, all sorts of different things, door-to-door salesman type thing at that time, before finally getting together and writing some stuff and doing some television work for Martin and Lewis. Martin and Lewis, yes, that D. Martin and Jerry Lewis. Another thing where you're like, oh my gosh, Martin and Lewis, and their starting stage, they actually wrote some stuff for them, and they got paid. Check this, they got paid $52,000 each. At that time, I mean, that's like equivalent to now, that's got to be what, $500,000? I mean, that's huge, and things were cheaper back then. So I would rather have $52,000 then than $500,000 now. $52,000 then, man, you could have probably bought 10 houses. That's crazy. You ain't buying that now with $500,000. But they did $52,000 each to write 5 different material for 5 different episodes on Martin Lewis, the Colgate Comedy Hour. So they actually got to be writers. They were so successful, and they really helped them. We know what Martin and Lewis went on to do. And Norman Lear is actually part of him and Simmons behind this. They actually got to help build the success of Martin and Lewis, and they were with them for 3 years before they finally left. Now, after Lear did that, in 1954, right, all the way up to 53, he was writing for there. In 1954, he started, CBS brought him in as a writer to try to save a comedy show that was failing. So he started writing for that show. Then at NBC, they had him producing the Martha Raye Show. So he's actually producing at NBC, writing for CBS. That's in the era that it's in the 50s. Remember, I Love Lucy was out at this time too. So and then Bob Hope Show. You had so many great shows, and he's rubbing elbows with all these people, to where anyone I know in my family personally that was alive at that time, they're all passed away. So to know that, hey, he was just here less than 3 days ago from filming this, man, what stories he could have told. I would have loved to have been one of his grandchildren. I could have talked his ear off forever about the stories. What was this like? What was that like? What were you doing here? Grandpa Lear, I don't want anything for Christmas. Just sit down and talk to me for an hour. That would have been so cool, man. So he's doing that. Then plus he starts writing opening monologues for the Tennessee Ernie Ford. Now I never watched Tennessee Ford, any of his shows, but I know him from I Love Lucy when he was cousin Ernie, when he comes on and he's playing the guitar, waking up Ricky early in the mornings. But yeah, that's what I know him from, and I think he's funny. And he had his huge show, and the opening monologue for his show was written by Norman Lear. I had no idea. Anything I'm telling you up to this point, I had no freaking idea. And I think that's just something where you go, this, and he did write a book, but I'm like, this is something where you can do a movie on this guy, the generations he went through. It's almost like if you've ever seen another movie like Legends of the Fall, where you're like, there's different eras through their life and all they go through. Man, Norman Lear, he lived probably about, it feels like when I do the research on him, and there's so much that's not even going to be in this video. That's on that, like I said, it's too big. It would be like a whole A&E hour special, maybe 2 hours. But there's so much that he lived. You're just like, man, just hearing this, Chaplin, Martin and Lewis, in the 50s, being a writer, director, producer for NBC and CBS at the height of their power, and when they're coming up, to do all that and then be like, okay, that's it. That's it for me. I mean, that's a great life. That's a great career. And he's not even scratching the surface yet. So yeah, he did all that. And now he went on to the first thing that he ever did on his own. After doing this, in 1959, he created his first ever show called The Deputy, starring Henry Fonda. So I've heard of that. I've never watched it, but I have heard of that. So now he's creating his stuff. We've seen him write, we've seen him produce, and now he's actually creating his own stuff. He wrote and produced a movie called Divorce American Style, and directed a film in 1971 called Cold Turkey, and I want to say that's starring Dick Van Dyke. I think that's what it was. But so now he's writing, like I said, directing. He's getting movies now. This is big time, and this is in the 70s. In 1968 and 1969, so he did 2 pilots. Now, the first one, he debuted it. He tried to get him with ABC. ABC's probably kicking themselves for not doing this. They didn't pick it up. It was called Justice for All. When I hear that, I don't know what that means. But it was supposed to be about like a blue-collar worker, and then I'm like, reminds me of Archie Bunker. The next one, the pilot that he did, was called Those Were the Days. We know the theme song. So, yes, that's what it was. He made 2 pilots based on All in the Family, and ABC rejected him, and he couldn't get it picked up. The third one was fine. He made another one, the third one, and it was All in the Family, picked up by CBS. Yes, great move by CBS. So when they did this, it premiered in January 12th, 1971. And when All in the Family came out, it wasn't an instant hit. The ratings, at least, were not good. I don't think people didn't like it. I think people, just like a lot of things on social media, there's so many things going on. You can make something beautiful, you can make something great or comical, but if no one sees it because it's buried among all the other trash or the other people doing stuff, it gets lost. And I think that's what happened with All in the Family, because it cleaned up at the Emmys. It got Best New Outstanding Comedy, but the ratings just weren't there. So it was kind of a flop at the beginning. Then the summer reruns, when it came out that summer, maybe people, hey, vacation, they're hitting around watching TV, people fell in love. And from that point on, thank God for reruns, that point on, it became #1 on television for 5 straight years. Man, so this is Norman Lear's big time. This is his baby. This is what, we always think of 2 things, and we're going to cover the next one. But All in the Family, and of course, the next big hit he had. After that, he gets to it, and that's Sanford and Son. Yeah, so it's funny, too. If you go back, we actually have a video where we break down fun facts about Sanford and Son, and that didn't get picked up right away, and because they were just like, you know what, they didn't think it would work. They were trying to cast different people. You'd have to go watch it to see. I remember who everyone was in it, but they were like, you know what, it wasn't going to get picked up. And CBS, I think, they didn't pick it up, and I was like, why would CBS not? You know Norman Lear, you know All in the Family. So what he did is, to get it signed, he took companies, they went there, and he put it on. He put on an episode of Sanford and Son, the pilot, in front of the cast of All in the Family. And I even said, what sold it to them and the NBC producers, who wanted it, was Fred's fake heart attack. When he did that, everyone in the cast of All in the Family, they loved it. They said, that's good, that's the gag, that's what you grip to. And then the NBC said, yeah, get it. And Sanford and Son, it didn't wait for summer reruns. It was an instant hit. So Sanford and Son gets up. And now, the funny thing is, Sanford and Son and even All in the Family, both were British sitcom ideas. They were already something that inspired him. And every great man that invents something is inspired by something else. And George Lucas will tell you that. And it's no different with Norman Lear. He saw these, but he put his own twist on it. Both Archie and Edith, both were half like his parents. They both remind him of his parents, and that's what inspired the character. So he puts his own touch on it. And Sanford and Son, he said he wanted to do the black community. He wanted to change the whole thing up, make it in Watts, right? And I think that was a brilliant idea, and it just happened to get the greatest 2 actors who could have played their parts. And then a lot of it, the hit, Norman Lear got it going, but a lot of it I give to Red Fox, bringing in all this cast of characters we talked about. So Sanford and Son, great thing. Now we sit there and we talked about how Archie and Edith were like that. So he's getting ideas, making them better, and putting his own touch on it. These shows were his baby, but now this is where we kind of get to the controversy where some people don't like Norman Lear when they say this, because of someone named Eric Monti. Eric Monti said he was racist, he was this, he was that. But I don't see signs of that other than his own experiences. And you got to take the fact that he feels hateful towards them, so he's gonna say whatever he wants. I don't know too much of the backstory than what I read. I didn't experience it. I wasn't walking around at that time when this actually happened live, but he did. So Eric Monti, he fought a lawsuit against Norman and his Norman's former assistant Bud Yorkin for stealing his ideas for Good Times, The Jeffersons, and What's Happening. He's saying, look, that he came up with the idea for George Jefferson and then some of the stuff behind it. He's saying, but with what's happening, he wrote, I want to say he wrote Cooley High, and then he helped make that. And so it's kind of like he's like, hey, you took my ideas. And I agree. If that's the case, yeah, he should. And it went to court. And he won $1 million lawsuit. That's huge at that time. He won $1 million lawsuit, and he got 1% ownership of Good Times, and he got a little bit of residual from Good Times. But he didn't get it from Jefferson's. He didn't get it from What's Happening. And I don't think he really had anything I read impact. I've seen fans say, oh, he stole Sanford and Son. No, he didn't. Sanford and Son was British, and then Norman Lear just altered it. This wasn't anything to do with Eric. So it was the other shows that he had. And what's disappointing is he made bad decisions. He didn't have great legal representation from what I read that he should have put for residuals from What's Happening, and also the Jeffersons, right? The Jeffersons probably being the biggest of these three. Good Times as well. But the Jeffersons, I think I knew when I was growing up, I saw that all the time. And I think that he probably should have did that. But he also invested money poorly, tried to start his own studio. It didn't work out, lost the money. And I feel so bad for him when you read his personal story. I feel so bad for him. Had a whole bunch of demons he was battling. By doing this, by bringing this lawsuit, unfortunately, Norman Lear was furious. He's like, okay, you come at and you sue us for saying this. Why would I ever work with you again? So Norman Lear is going, hey, I'm not working with you. Bud's not working with you. And now he's going, hey, I'm blackballed. You know, I'm blacklisted. I can't get in. And that's probably true because Norman Lear had huge, probably influence. So he could say, just like the owners, you know, well, we're not getting them. But at least with this, Eric had shown he did quality work, you know? And so you're like, well, why couldn't he get in? It's just because they were like, you know what? We don't want to bring you in. They're furious at you. Why would we bring you in? So even if you wrote for us, anything that becomes successful, how do we know you're not going to turn around and say, hey, you stole my idea and have another lawsuit? It's both ways. I can see both ways. If I'm working with someone and they do something and then they stab me in the back, I'm going to feel like, hey, I don't want you. I'm not going to work with you again. And now it spreads around for anyone who does the same job as me. We're not going to want to. But at the same time, Eric's got to stand up and say, look, I'm not going to let you just steal this from me and I don't get any money for it or any benefits. So both sides of it had points, but I do feel bad the way it ended for Eric Monty, big time. So that was the big controversy with Norman Lear. I don't think it really had an impact on his other stuff, but some of these we see it did. Now, his awards. He had many awards. I'm going to cover a few of them. 1977, he got the Peabody Award for Lifetime Achievement. So in 77, subtract 22, what was that? 55? Yeah. Anyways, so he's at 55 years old, and he wins the Lifetime Achievement Award. A lot of people, you're 55 and you get that award, you're like, hey, you know what? I've reached the mountaintops. I'm done. I'll probably, in my 60s, retire. Past, you know, hopefully I live past my 70s or 80s. You don't know. We never know. No, it ain't over yet. So he gets that in 77. Then he also gets in 1980 the Golden Plate Award. In 1984, he gets in the Television Academy Hall of Fame. Holy cow. And he's still going. He's still making shows. There's a whole list of shows from the 80s, 90s, movies, things that he impacted. I was just covering stuff up to Sanford and Son. And what really got him going, his early life and his powerful core that really pushed it, and then the controversy. Then he gets other awards as well. But in 2017, mind you, he wins the Peabody Award for Lifetime Achievement again. 40 years later. So he's in his 90s and he wins it again. I don't think that's ever happened. I can't believe that's happening. Where you're just like, hey, here's a Lifetime Achievement Award. 40 years later, bro, you're still kicking and you're still putting out great stuff. Here's another Lifetime Achievement Award. So Norman Lear, regardless of where you feel how his life with the controversy, thank you, Mr. Lear, so much for hundreds of thousands of hours for all of us. Heck, millions of hours. Remember Sanford and Son, each season, the episode would get 14, sometimes 16 million views. So just think of it's got to be billions of people that have laughed, cried, taken joy, and just helped us get through everyday life, through our struggles when, hey, you know what, I'm having a bad day. Dun, 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 you know, the Jeffersons, we're moving on up, and we're laughing our butts off, and we're having great times. So those were the days, you know, all sorts of things were, these theme songs, of course, he didn't create them, but they all only came into existence because of Norman Lear. So thank you so much for your service. Thank you so much for my entire life, and hopefully my kids' life as well, watching Sanford and Son and the other great shows you produce. But that's it on Norman Lear, on our fun fact today. Go look him up, because you will find you can sit there for an hour reading stuff on him and everything he did, the contributions. This is just like this. This much. This is just this much we covered. So thanks a lot, guys. Give a like. Please subscribe. I should have said this at the beginning. I continue to want us to grow. Subscribe if you like anything you see, and share. Get it out there for other ones, because I promise you, I'm seeing every week someone say, hey, a Sanford and Son channel dedicated to Sanford and Son. I didn't know that. About time someone did that. Well, if we get it out to everyone, it's going to grow bigger and bigger. So please, if you could help, give a like, give a subscribe, and share. Have a great weekend, and we will talk to you later. Peace.